Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we got Cory Boatright with House Kings, and he's here from Oklahoma City to share how he's closed over $100 million in transactions. Crazy, crazy number. If this is your first time tuning in, I am Steve Trang, and I train some of the top wholesalers in the country, and I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. So one question I get all the time is, how do I become one of the 100 millionaires? And let me answer it here. If you just take consistent action, in the next 5 to 7 years, you will become one. When you hear a nugget, please just type in the comment section, and after the show, identify your single biggest takeaway and focus on just that for the next 7 days. If you get value out of the show, please tag a friend below, share this episode right now. That way we can all grow together. You ready?
I am.
All right, so first question is, what got you into real estate?
What got me involved with real estate? So I'm 44 right now, and I bought my first house when I was 21. And I really didn't know.
Like more than half of your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I really didn't know what I was doing. Just kind of bought one with my roommate at the time. And we lived in one side of this duplex, and we were going to fix the other side up. And I literally we just did it just to save money. Wasn't from this part of like, I'm going to, start flipping houses or anything. It was you
weren't house hacking intentionally.
I wasn't house hacking intentionally. We just lived in one side of it and then saved money on the other side. And we thought, okay, we'll fix this other side up and then maybe rent it out. But we weren't going to flip it or anything. So I wanted to learn how to do everything myself. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about, I wanted to tile the floors. I wanted to do all the plumbing. And so I did.
You're very ambitious.
I was very ambitious, and painting, and still to this day, man, I can get paint on the ceiling in another room, for somehow by me painting. I cannot stand painting. And so, but on the plumbing, we had some pipe break, and I thought, I'm going to come in and fix this myself. I went in under the sink and took something off I shouldn't have. I thought I turned off one of the main, but it wasn't the main one, and water just blew up everywhere, and it just soaked down everything, and it just ruined. I mean, I thought I probably caused another $5,000 in more repairs than was even originally there, you know. But I was just ambitious, wanting to figure it out, and I just learned very quickly that I'm not the person that can do that, and I can actually spend more money, by me doing it myself than just having a plumber come over and do it.
DIY is not necessarily a money saver.
No. So 21 is when I bought my first duplex, first house. It wasn't until later on that I started to get more involved with actually learning about wholesaling. I first started out as a bird dog. I was working I worked at a lot of different companies. I was pretty ambitious. One of my good friends sold his internet company. I think he was like 24 years old, and he sold it for $7 million. Still a mentor to me this day.
Wow.
And he would just really encourage me that there was this possibility and it was an internet company. And so I was like, wow, I need to really start thinking about this internet thing. So man, I jumped into the internet game in my 20s in a hard way. I mean, I started to make money by watching little videos. If you remember this back in the day, it was like you watch these videos and you'd make money from watching videos, and then clicks. So I hired this guy from overseas to build me a little clicker. So it was like you had to click this ad all the time and make sure that it was getting. So they showed that you were actually watching the video.
Way back,
right? And then remember GoTo.com? You remember GoTo before original Google pay-per-click? It was called GoTo.
I do not remember that.
Yeah, so we're buying traffic on GoTo, and where you can get 8-cent clicks and 5-cent clicks. I mean, popular terms now, like real estate.
Are you talking about those big flashing banner ads?
Ads that flashed. I had a company that I actually had a company that was that would create those banners, and then we had other people that we were working with that we had a agreement with that we could run those banners on their site. Mm-hmm. And so I had that was called Banner Servant. I had that company for a while. I actually sold over 10,000 Ginsu knives a month on eBay.
How many?
10,000 Ginsu knives a month on eBay. I think my best month, no kidding, was over 100 for the year. So I did, multiple months with 10,000 Ginsu knives a month. I bought all this. So the point to getting up to real estate is I got up to this one company, and I started to I kept kind of being a drop shipper, if you will, which is basically finding a product that that is popular and you don't take physical inventory of it. You have an agreement, usually as a reseller, to come and then sell it and then ship it to someone, and you make the difference in between.
Right.
Basically, wholesaling. You know, so if you remember plasma electronics, so plasma TVs, when they first came out, they were like $20,000, $30,000.
I remember the first time I saw one. That was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen.
Most beautiful thing.
It was $16,000. Like, who's paying this much for a TV?
I got out Ginsu knives because I had to sell like hundreds and hundreds of Ginsu knives to make as much money as I would on a plasma TV sell. So getting up to the real estate question, I'm getting there, is I had to basically build up this company for plasma TVs, grew it to several millions of dollars, and I ended up selling that company. And when I did, I started to look into what I could do with some of the proceeds, which was to get into real estate.
Got it. So you were doing all these other hustles prior to real estate.
Yes.
So, and you started real estate when you were 21.
Yes. Got my first duplex when I was 21.
So what I'm not hearing is college.
No. Yeah. Funny, I actually did go to a year and a half of college at UCO. I dropped out of high school my junior year.
What is UCO?
University, Oklahoma, University Central Oklahoma.
Got it.
And the only reason I went there, because I dropped out of high school, whenever in my junior year, I worked at a company called Lifeline Amerivision, and they offered a program that would put you, if you wanted to, if you just go get your GED, so I got my GED, and they would offer to pay for your basics. So that's the only reason I went to UCO. And I did, and I was studying marketing, and I was trying to get my basics, and I ended up actually quitting there and starting the company, which is the Plasma Electronics company.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking this is that, you know, right now we got trying to grow our social media influence. We have a lot of younger TikTokers.
Yeah.
And the question that comes up over and over again, because it's a younger demographic, is like, should I go to college?
Right.
And I used to say, yeah, you should. Now I'm saying, well, I don't know, maybe it depends. What are you trying to do?
Right.
And it used to be college was like, a long time ago, college wasn't that important. And now it's like, good luck getting a job without a college degree.
Right.
And now it's like, do you really need to go to college?
Yeah, I don't think you do. I have my stepson, Nick, which is 18. He just started Oklahoma University, started studying to be a cardiologist, super bright kid, 4.4 GPA. You know, academia is his thing. He loves it, absolutely. You know, studying to be, you know, a cardiologist, I would think, Steve, that I would want somebody that probably went to college for 11 years. Which
you don't want them to side hustle that in the alleys.
Probably don't want to have a side hustle like, yeah, I did a good job on my own. Here, I need to work on your heart, you know, like, but I do think I think it's like, you ever heard of specialized knowledge?
Right.
I think that whenever you look at specialized knowledge and kind of anything, it's always going to be kind of worth a little bit more. But at the end of the day, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, and you know that, I think it's hard to teach drive. Someone asked me this a long time ago. They go, can you be taught how to be driven? You don't think so, right?
I don't think so, no.
I don't think so either. Ever since I was, in grade school, I would do these things called, remember those hot toothpicks? Hot toothpicks.
Yeah, there was like a cinnamon or mint toothpicks.
Yep, I'd make different flavors and I'd sell those on the grade school, and sometimes I'd trade them for candy. And then I did glitter pencils. No kidding, glitter pencils. And if a girl I liked, I put her name on the glitter pencil and give it one to her for free. Yeah. But all this time, it was just hustle, and I got, you know, Transformers, GoBots. I started selling, trading, and it was just driven to be able to. There was something about the exchange of bartering. You know,
right?
That I always just really enjoyed.
How old were you when you were doing all this?
I would say I'm probably 7 or 8.
Okay.
Whenever I was really, you know, just starting to understand, like, I really enjoy this stuff.
Yeah, because I wasn't doing that until like I was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So, but that's cool. So, all right. So then you're doing plasma TVs. Yep. I saw some there also domain brokers. Was that before or after real estate?
No, that was before real estate. I mean, pretty much when I went into the real estate, it was game over. Yeah.
Okay. So talk to me about the domain broker thing, because I do a little bit. I want to say domain broker. I own a lot of domains.
Okay.
Right. So talk to me, like, how did you get into that and what'd you do? What was that about?
So a friend of mine was selling domains on eBay, just like I was selling Ginsu knives on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I started blowing up on eBay is because they had this thing called Dutch auction. Now, I haven't been on eBay in a while to do this, but they had this thing where basically you list a product,
Mm-hmm.
and as soon as it sold, it would immediately have another one come up to be bought again. You didn't have to go in there and do anything. It's called a Dutch auction. So I started to do that with Ginsu knives and charging 99 cents instead of the $8 of what most people were charging, but I charged like $7 for shipping. So I did the whole free plus shipping model in a way in the beginning.
Yeah.
And hustling. And my friend was doing kind of similar with domains. He was selling like tons of domains, like listed a ton of them for like 99 cents, but he would let them just run on auctions. And some of them, it would get up to $800, $900. Well, back then you'd pay $10 for a domain. So one sell could cover all of these. And usually on the other ones, he would at least get $5 bids or $10. So he was making money, and he was making a whole lot of money on the big ones. And sometimes he'd sell for several thousands of dollars.
Right.
So I was like, man, that sounds kind of cool. You know, I'd like to be a domain broker too. So I ended up getting over 1,000 domains, you know, and some of them I had a pretty good success on. So, but it was just another business.
You know what your biggest one was?
I think it was Yahoo.com. I ended up selling it to a subsidiary of Yahoo for $10,000.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
One letter from Yahoo.
So you
I remember.
Get this duplex, running out the other side. You do it yourself.
Yeah.
Screw it up.
Screw it up.
Kept it or you sold it?
Ended up selling it.
Okay. Did you make money?
I did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then what was the next chapter after that?
Well, after
You got 23 years on it.
I know, man. So the plasma TV business, after I sold that, I got some money, and I really started thinking, okay, what's the next step? You know, one of our good friends, David Phelps, says, what's your next?
What's your next? Yeah.
So I was like, all right, what's my next? And I knew that real estate was something that was intriguing to me, and I made some money on that duplex, but I didn't really think like that was going to be something I was going to start pursuing so heavily, because I thought you had to, I know it's going to sound really strange, but I thought I had to have some kind of degree to do it.
We don't know what we don't know.
I thought I had to have some kind of something behind my name to be a real estate investor.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound so strange. I mean, there are a lot of people in this business that think you need to have a real estate license, right?
Yeah.
So it's not as strange.
Similar.
Yeah.
Similar. I thought I had to have, yeah. So what I did is I ended up, every one of those, so the people that would buy those plasma TVs, you don't think they have money, right? They're affluent. So I'd have conversations with those people, and sometimes pretty long ones. Actually, later on in life, I still had some of those that became a private lender, but they would buy these $20,000 plasma TVs, and I'd always ask them, what was it that led to your success? And what do you think they said?
Real estate.
Yes.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it's like real estate, real estate, real estate, real estate. So I knew I needed to really look into it. So after sold the company, what I wanted to do is then go and get into real estate more. So I went on eBay. I loved eBay. I literally typed in real estate investor, how to sell real estate, and I just bought every course, ebook, anything that they had then that I could learn from. Mm-hmm. And I made a commitment to myself for one whole year. And I'm a musician, by the way, so I that's a whole other thing. But I played guitar when I was 13 years old, played in a Christian heavy metal band, sold over 20,000 albums. Crazy stuff happened. Played at Cornerstone, one of the largest Christian festivals in the country. And just crazy things happened through that ministry and through that time with my buddies. And so, you know, being a musician, playing guitar, music's so important to you. I vowed to not listen to any music for one whole year. And I actually did it for 1 year and 1 day. And all I did was listen to real estate, Ron LeGrand, listen to Tony Robbins, listen to Brian Tracy, listen to, just all of these old real estate guys. And also actually was listening to the Bible too. And I just listened all the time in my car. In fact, there's times I would drive home and I'd think, you know what? I didn't finish this. I'm just going to drive I'll just turn around and drive another hour and just to come back just to listen to. So basically, even though I dropped out of high school, I feel like I have a doctor's in, I have over 10,000 hours in listening to, all these different influencers and, personal achievement guys. And I've listened to Ron LeGrand backwards and forwards. When I met him, when he actually got into CG, I know he was in one of our groups.
Yep.
And it was just like a starstruck moment. It's like, man, you don't even understand. I've went through your courses.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd go through the courses, I would highlight them, and then I would put them back on eBay after I was done with them and sell them off them for more money, because I would say it comes with notes. No kidding. And so I joke around too. And I say, I literally, I didn't have to pay a whole lot, because I would go through the course. I'd finish it usually in a week. I just was so hungry to learn this stuff. And I got to a place where I was confident enough where I was like, all right, I'm ready. What do I need to do? And so I found a guy that was buying and selling houses, and I became a bird dog for him.
Got it. And this is before or after the duplex?
This is after.
After duplex. Okay, so duplex, a lot of education.
Yeah.
And then you bird dogged.
Yep.
And bird dogging is something that until very recently I never understood it. Yeah. Because if you're going to find the property, why don't you just contract it yourself? Now I know why you can't contract it yourself. But until very recently, I didn't understand that.
Really?
Well, because I thought, you got contingencies, you can cancel, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's actually, fraudulent to contract a property you can't buy. So
right.
Bird dogs make sense now.
Right.
So, all right, so bird dogging. So who did you bird dog for, and what was that like?
Yeah, so a guy named Brian, his dad actually owned a lot of real estate, and he had some too. And, he basically was saying, hey, man, just go out, look for a bunch of houses that have high weeds and, stuff on the windows, and looks like it's going to be broken into or was broken into, and let me know the address.
So driving for dollars.
And if I end up buying it, I'll pay you $500. If I end up, I think it's like if you give me more than 3, I'll pay you $1,000. Mm-hmm. So I ended up doing bird dog for him and just learning, But eventually, I'm like, okay, what is he doing with it? Mm-hmm. And once I realized what he was doing with it, some of those, what he would do is he would wholesale them. And that was a whole first concept I ever had of.
So he was wholesaling
them.
He wasn't even necessarily flipping.
Not all of them.
Right.
He was flipping some of them. He was wholesaling some of them. He was buying holdings, and so he was kind of doing all of it. But I realized that the ones that he was wholesaling, often he didn't have to come with the money. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a minute. So he just wholesaled. And I think it's because I found another guy that bought the house from him, and I was like looking and seeing like how much he made from it. And it was like $5,000. So it's like, okay, I'm making $500. He's making $5,000. I was like, I just need to figure out if that's possible. I want to be on that side if possible. Mm-hmm. And if it is, what I need to do to get there.
So what'd you do with that information?
So I just dug into more real estate education and started learning everything I can about wholesaling, and found out that I didn't have to have the money to go buy the house. The end buyer had the money to buy the house. I had a credit line that I could take down the property if I needed to. I had my own money. I could take it down if I wanted to as well. But often I wouldn't have to bring my own money. So I remember the first time that I made a wholesaling fee, it was like $2,500. And it was that same moment that whenever I sold my first plasma TV, mm-hmm. and I made like $4,000, mm-hmm. And I was thinking, I have to, how many Ginsu knives do I have to sell to make $4,000 in a day?
Yeah.
And it was a lot.
Right.
So it was that same moment. It was like, I'm going to have to bird dog 5 deals to, and so I just started thinking, I just need to learn more about, wholesaling. Then I need to figure out a way if I can push up my fees.
And so is that what you did? You jumped into wholesaling first?
Yep. Jumped into wholesaling first.
And then
just a natural progression.
When did you wholesale your first deal?
Gosh, man, my first deal. It had to been, so in 2000, it was long. It was a lot of years later. So I would say I probably was, it's probably 2000 and right around 2000, probably.
All right.
Somewhere in there.
And so you started wholesaling. what was that adventure like? Because that's a completely different market, right? I mean, this is over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a completely different business model. So what was that journey like?
What was that journey like? Okay.
Because there's no pulling lists. There's no
pulling lists.
There's no list source.
No, there's no list
no
source. No, there's nothing like that. Right. It was just straight hustle. It was just straight driving for dollars. And instead of having to bird dog and give them, I would basically get my own leads, and I found my own buyers.
All right. So you drive it, and then you would talk to the homeowners.
That's right.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. And then how did you find buyers? Because Oklahoma, isn't it a non-disclosure state?
No, we can go right on to the county
so you can
and
just
see
go find out who it is.
Yep. I wasn't smart enough then to do. I wasn't taking that angle then. I was just finding people at like a RIA group, and I was back then. I think there was Craigslist was a big one, maybe, or something like that. Maybe like an online place. But a lot of times just the community. I found buyers in the community.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then after you started wholesaling, what was the next pivot in your business?
So after that, I started seeing the guys that were wholesaling, and once they bought, they would go and fix and flip. So they would get these properties and fix them up and flip them. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because they're making $15,000 or $20,000 or more. You know, so I'm like, I need to be a rehabber. I need to go and get these to fix and flip. So I started a little kind of like a rehab. Had a couple crews working, we had houses that were rehabbing. And I quickly learned, I was only in that for, I think, a year and a half. And I quickly learned that was not what I wanted to do. You want to know why?
Well, it probably goes back to that same story as the 21-year-old and bursting the pipes.
Sort of. One, whenever you think you're going to make $20,000 on a rehab, East in Oklahoma at that time, on let's say a $40,000 or $50,000 house, often that was about 30% more than what you actually ended up netting because of all the stuff that happened, timeline, you're spending more money. The other thing was over budget. The other thing that really made the difference, though, is I went into one of my jobs, and there was a guy on there was a GC, and he had some subs in the back, and the subs were in Oklahoma. We have, it's a lot of Indians, Arapaho, Cherokee, and all this, and we had some Indian guys that he was working with, and they were drinking mouthwash on the porch, getting drunk on the back. And these were subs. And it was like a weekend or something like that, and he didn't know I was like going to come by. And I came by, and he was like in the living room, and they were on the back porch drinking mouthwash and getting drunk. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but you can actually get drunk on mouthwash. I've never done it.
That was kind of my next question.
I've never done it, but it's got a lot of alcohol in it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think it would just probably burn your throat. I can't imagine, but they were doing this. And I got so charged emotionally that I went in and I confronted the GC. And we got into a very big altercation where we were going to basically throw punches, and he pulled a gun on me. And I remember I've only had 2 guns pulled on me in my entire life. One, I lived at a place called Potomac House Apartments in Oklahoma City during that time my the Christian band. I wore a red hat, and that time it was like Crips and Bloods, and a guy approached me one time and thought I had a hat on that shouldn't, wrong color, and he confronted me, and it was actually a band called the Crucified, a Christian band, but he thought it was a freaking gang thing. That was the first time. And then this time during my contractor, and he pointed it right at me. And I just remember thinking, like, is this worth it?
Yeah. Like,
do I enjoy, is it really worth it to do this? Because am I going to have to go check up on all these, and how much, so I just made a decision right then and there that I wanted to get out of rehabbing. Plus, I really wasn't making as much as I thought it was, so it was frustrating anyway.
You see those gross margins, those gross profits, and then you find out what the true profits are.
That's right. Yeah. And so I just kind of moved away from that, and I started looking into creative finance.
Got it. So what was that?
So I actually started to do lease options on eBay. Good old eBay again. Went back. Lease options.
Yeah.
I would put on the option consideration fee as the eBay auction, and I didn't care if I even got one bid because I just wanted somebody that agreed to making the payment and sending the down, sending the down. So I started doing lease options off of eBay, and I ended up selling the same house 4 times. And in fact, I got very close to paying off the same house with the option consideration fee.
Wow.
I would sell it on eBay. I would FedEx over the whatever they agreed on, and then they would stay for like 6 months, 8 months, a year. And they'd move out. They'd maybe fix a few things for sweat equity, but they wouldn't able to buy it. So I'd turn back around and do it again.
That's so crazy because I still remember looking at eBay and looking at real estate. And in my mind, every time I was like, who the hell is buying real estate on eBay? I guess your clients were buying real estate. My clients
are buying real estate, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then how did you go from all this to having 400 doors? I mean, it's...
Yeah. Well, so that's with apartments on syndication, through my partners. And that's actually only happened within the last 5 years or so.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at some point, you connected with Jason Medley, who we recently had on the show.
Yep. My boy.
Sean Terry.
Yeah, another great friend.
And you got all these different relationships that you're leveraging, and you got nationwide influence. I mean, I remember we were talking about the OKC bill or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you got to talk to Cory Boatright." I was like, "Who's Cory Boatright?" And then I looked you up. I was like, "Wow, this guy knows everybody." So how did you make all that happen? And then
can I talk about it? Am I allowed to talk about it? Are you sure? Because are you sure?
Yeah.
Well. So, about probably 2004, I realized that there was an opportunity coming because I was seeing more and more people buy houses that they couldn't afford.
You saw that in 2004.
At that time, people could fog a mirror. You can get a loan, right? People were just spending money like crazy.
Yes.
And I remember I sent out, and by this time I was sending out old yellow, ugly yellow letters. Not a lot of them, but some. And this old lady called me. And again, I had no team. It's just me picking up the phone. And she says, "Hey, I got your letter. I want you to come out and take a look at my house and make an offer on my house." And I said, "Okay, well, tell me about the house." And it was in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is even now hot, desirable area, and great house. And she was telling me about it, and I was like, okay. I mean, there's going to be no equity in this house, Sure enough, she got down to it, and it was like, how much do you owe in the house? Like $170. How much do you think it's worth? $168. Something like that. And I was like, well, there's no equity. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, but I'm an investor. And, the way that we, as a small business, we have to have equity. And if you want a retail buyer, that's great, but it takes a little time. She's like, no. The bank said just to come out and make an offer. And I was like, okay. The bank said? She's like, yes. So, all right, I'll come out. And this is kind of like an old lady, so I felt kind of bad. And I was like, I'm just going to go out and maybe just say hi, and maybe she'll refer me somebody. So I went out and met her. And sweet old lady, gosh, she was great. And the house was great. I think even better than I thought. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to, And she was like, well, can you make an offer on it? And I was like, yeah, but you're not going to like it. She's like, just make an offer. I think I made an offer of it was like 80s and something like 87,000 or 85,000. I really don't remember the number, but it was something like that.
Yeah.
It was something low. And didn't expect I was going to hear from her again. Like the next day, I get a call from her, and she says, "Hey, remember me?" Well, yeah, of course. Couldn't. I mean, she had a great voice, the little old lady voice, and she said, "Well, you made an offer on the house." And yeah, she said, "Well, I've got the bank on the other line, and they want to talk to you about it." I was like, "You have the bank on the other line?" She's like, "Yeah." So okay, patch them through, and the lady comes on. And she goes, "Can I speak to Cory in loss mitigation?" And there's moments in life where it's like the clouds open up and the sun shines down, and this realization something in you just goes, oh my gosh, I see the future. I see where things are going to go. And I said, this is Cory in loss mitigation. You know, not having a loss mitigation department at all.
I mean, you are the loss mitigation.
I was the loss mitigation.
Yeah.
She said, yeah, you made an offer of, 87 or whatever, but we're not willing to accept it. Shocker. She said, but we will accept if you can pay us like a couple thousand more. So at those days, they were actually telling you, if you remember this, the banks would tell you what they're willing to accept. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Of course, we're talking about short sales. So I ended up buying that house, made more money on a house that had no equity than I have in any other transaction I've ever done in my life. Wholesaling, anything, rehabbing, more money, and had no equity. And I just remember, if I can do it once, what would happen if I just focused on this?
Right. Just got to find more of them.
I just got to find more of them. So that changed the game. I turned off everything else, and I just started focusing on houses that had no equity.
Yeah. So this is 2004.
Yeah, 2004.
I didn't learn about it until like 2007.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 2004, 2005, 2006.
a huge head start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what'd you do with that information?
Gosh. So if you want to compress it, I ended up getting better at it. I looked online. Nobody's really talking about it, but there's a
Why
thing.
would they?
Yeah, there's a thing called Easy HUD. If you can go back and look at this, it used to be like it's a blog. Chris Daigle ran it. Pretty successful investor himself. And I was just going on there answering questions. So some people were starting to ask questions about, hey, what happens when you got like a first mortgage and a second mortgage? How do you get out? Can you create equity? And I was like, oh yeah, I've done that. Oh, you make them compete. Oh, you get them on the line together. And by this time I was doing quite a few of these short sales and getting them approved. And I ended up answering. Chris Daigle just told me this one day. I did like 1,200 posts on easyhud.com. And so he contacted me and like, dude, do you want to be a moderator? Do you want to, because you're answering all the questions. I was like, sure, that's great. So I kind of started getting a little bit of Cory's the short sale guy kind of thing then. And then in town, in Oklahoma City, we started to do these little events. First it was like a Shoney's, and then it kind of got a little Western sizzling, and then it got a little bigger and bigger. And Chris had me on answering questions, stuff, Daigle. And then one time he said, dude, why don't you just make a course? Why don't you just make a short sale course? And I was like, I don't want to make a course. Because I remember thinking like, you mean like one of those guys on TV? Like he was like, yeah. He's like, I know. I bought those off eBay. I didn't look at myself. I was like the reluctant guru, if you want to call it. And he's like, no, man, if you make one, we'll do a webinar. And this was a brand new concept. Really, nobody was doing webinars. And he said, if you make one, we'll do a webinar. I think we'll do really well. So I built a course, and it took me every bit of 6 months to do it. I mean, it was over 300 pages. It was blood, sweat, and tears. It was two massive, like it's called, I don't know what it's called. It's called lumpy mail or whatever. Two huge things of binders with CDs and DVDs, right? And it was called Short Sale Fundamentals. That course went on to sell over 2,500 courses. We charged $1,500 for the course in the beginning, and then we ended up getting down to I think around $800. We did a webinar with Chris, and on one webinar we ended up selling over $50,000 in an hour and a half.
Wow. And
I just remember thinking that this is going to be the way of the future of courses and education and all of that. And sure enough, it was. There was another event came out called VIS, Virtual Investing Seminar, if you remember this or not. And then there's Virtual Investing Seminar 2. And basically it was the idea that real estate is going to be moving more to the internet. We're going to be going to the internet to find, instead of realtors, you're going to be going to the internet first to look for deals, to find information. And
sounds about right.
That's about right. And so that's what I did. I just started to focus all on short sales. And then I thought, I'm doing these deals. It makes sense to have a loss mitigation company.
Finally, Cory.
Finally.
At loss mitigation.
Finally. By the way, whenever I talked to my attorney, I said, what's it take for me to have a loss mitigation department? He goes, a stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun.
And that's how you connected with Jason.
That's right. So Medley and I met. Love Medley. And And actually I knew him before Collective Genius. He had this thing called iVisionary, and a funny story, if he's listening to it, he'll laugh. But, you know, I didn't know this, but he had to tell me later. And he basically bought a short sale fundamentals course. He actually went through it and did a deal, made over 30 G's on it. And when we met each other, he was going to basically say, hey, I'm going to be your testimonial. But really he wanted to work together to transactional fund some of our clients and some people were building up. But it's funny, when we met each other, it was like he's going to be a testimonial.
He's trying to leverage your list to sell his services.
This thing called short saleology, man.
Yeah.
So I started building short saleology and building a huge email list. You know, building emails and emails and emails, and Medley was doing the same thing with iVisionary.
So it sounds like he was trying to do with you what I do now with Collective Genius.
Exactly.
Right? Leverage your database.
Leverage the database. All for good reasons. I mean,
all for good reasons, right?
Yeah, all for good reasons.
But that's just funny. That's
Isn't that funny?
How that all worked together.
Yeah.
And then along the way, you met Sean Terry.
Yeah. So Sean and I met at, I want to say it's at Preston Ely, back in the day, Preston. He had a thing called Freedom Soft. Now, Rob bought that, Swanson, and he's done a lot of things since, but he had Freedom Soft, and Preston was doing a big event. It's his first event. But actually, I met Preston Ely, though, at Virtual Investing Seminar. But anyway, so I met Sean at Preston's first event in, I want to say it was in San Diego. And Tham Merrill was out there and did the fulfillment in the back end of coaching on that event. But Sean and I met, and I was hearing more about Sean about doing a podcast. He was just kind of doing these podcasts. And I had a $100,000 consulting program called the 52-week apprentice program. And he was like, I've never done a 6-figure consulting, you know, how would you, let's talk about that on the podcast.
Yeah.
So if you go back and listen to the podcast, you can hear that's
Back in like
how
2009.
we met. Yeah. It's crazy, man, how things just, the history.
So you and I had a conversation a while ago, and we were talking about coaching and 6-figure coaching.
Yeah.
Right. I get people asking me all the time, can you coach me? And it's like, well, yeah, if the price is right, I can coach you, right?
Right.
But it's always group coaching. They're like, no, I want one-on-one. It's like, I don't have time for one-on-one.
Right.
Right. If you want coaching, it's gotta be group coaching.
Right.
And they're like, no, it's gotta be one-on-one. And I said, well, I mean, if it's gonna be one-on-one, it's gonna be a number you don't want to pay. Like, well, what is it? It's like, it's $100,000. And to this day, I've not gotten that. But I asked
You're
around.
worth it. You're worth it.
Well, I appreciate that. But I asked around, and you've done it.
Yes.
All right. So here's the question I have.
Sure.
Is because I actually talked to Tom Kroll about this.
Yep.
Talked to Jack Bosch about this.
Yeah.
Right. I don't question whether we're worth it.
Right.
Right. What I question is, can we deliver enough? And actually, who else I talked about this? Jason Boozy. Right. Can you do this in a situation where it makes sense for both parties, and there's not too much burden, I guess, on both parties?
Right.
So expand on that.
So it was, for me, it was hard. It was a mindset thing. Cause I was getting, you know, certain dollar amounts for certain things. And then I just got to a place where, you know, like you start considering what your time is and what you're doing. And, you know, and I thought, you know, what would happen if I just basically sent out something to my list that said, I'm thinking about offering this program and it's going to be ridiculously expensive. And I think who I learned this from was Frank Kern. I want to say I learned it from Frank.
It sounds like Dan Kennedy, but
Kennedy
Frank Kern,
or Frank.
It does a good job
one of those
the
two,
takeaway.
Frank or Ken. It wasn't John Carlton. I think it was Frank.
Definitely sounds like Frank Kern thing.
Yeah, and I just got out of a program with Evan Pagan called, I think it was called Get Altitude or something. And basically that was a $10,000 a person that went to, were you at that event?
I was not that, but Evan Pagan, I mean, he's renowned. He's had some great programs.
Oh yeah, he's one of the incredibles. I was in his mastermind group. We did an interview together.
And for those of you guys that don't know what we're talking about, Cory and I are geeking out about information marketing right now. Completely different in real estate, but relevant to this conversation.
Get on YouTube and look at Evan Payton. Yeah, I mean, the guy's incredible. So he was running a $80 million business from virtual assistants. He literally just had tons of virtual assistants. But anyway, he's an organizational master and all this other stuff. But he had a program in Get Altitude, and he charged $10,000 a head to come. And I think it was just like, why don't you just put it out there and see who would be interested? And I did not think that anybody would be. Mm-hmm. So I was I was like, why would somebody want to do that? And then I had to start thinking about, well, if they said yes, how am I going to deliver value? What am I going to do? So I came up with a 52-week apprentice program. So 1 week, 1 hour, every week for 52 weeks. Mm-hmm. Now, if you miss it, it's on you. If I miss it, then I'll make sure you get it. But if you miss it, it's on you. So it's a discipline thing. It's also a filtered out thing. So where you're not taking on just anybody that can write a check. Mm-hmm. Usually they write a $50,000 check now and then $41.66 for the next 12 months, basically. But so what I did is I sent it out and I said, this is going to be ridiculously expensive, pushing back, right? And I got like 5 people to apply. Mm-hmm. And then out of that 5, I ended up accepting, I think, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the question basically is, what are you going to do to deliver the value? Well, the funny thing is, we just had a conversation about a year, not listening to music, but listening to coaching, listening to real estate and personal development and all these other things, right? Mm-hmm. That's it's over 10,000 hours. You know, we don't think about what value that we actually have to deliver. And we don't think about what that's worth to another person.
Right.
And the right person will, so I'll just say it like this. Some people have more money than they do time. Mm-hmm. They didn't buy any of your courses before, not the $500, not the $1,000, not the whatever, $1,500. They didn't go to your boot camp or anything, but all of a sudden you say, it's going to be you and I, and we're going to be talking once a week for 52 weeks. Mm-hmm. That resonates with them.
Yeah. Well, the guy that values their time or the money. And because I actually had around the same time too, I was talking to Brandon Simmons. And he was like, dude, you don't know the guy that just sold out of his tech company. He's got $3 million.
Exactly.
And he's got time. He doesn't know what to do with it.
I have the avatar too. It's someone that usually has some type of inheritance. Mm-hmm. They sold a company, or insurance. They had some insurance, which is kind of like an inheritance, and
it's like
they
Brian
have
Higgins.
more money than they have time.
Yeah. Well, but Brian, he was on the show a month or two ago, right? I'm tired of insurance. This sucks. Get
Cool
me into
guy,
real
man.
estate.
Brian's cool. Yeah.
He's an incredible guy.
Yeah.
All right.
Smart guy too. Both those guys, Brian and Alex.
So I don't know how long ago, but it seems like it wasn't that long ago. You went nationwide.
Yeah. November of last year. I'll tell you how long ago.
So it wasn't long ago at all.
No, not at all.
All right.
Yeah.
Walk me through this process. What was the thought process? Like, you're in OKC, you're doing well.
Yeah.
Not doing well. You're doing incredibly well. And like, you
Relative
know what?
yeah.
Let's just go nationwide.
Yeah. Sean Terry, another good friend of mine, obviously a business partner in the apartments.
And Sean, if you're listening, get off my YouTube ads. Anyway.
Sean had mentioned that he was doing some virtual things. It's working out pretty well. Mm-hmm. And remember COVID, March 20, a lot of changes happening,
A few things changed.
Uncertainty.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Now you can't go, and remember, in Oklahoma, it's just a good old boy. So you go meet the people, and you look them in the eye, shake their hand, Now we got to move to a primarily virtual model to continue going. Mm-hmm. So because of that, I thought, well, if we're just doing it virtually now for a period of time, what would stop us from just doing it in another state? Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to recreate the wheel. I didn't want to do those things. So Sean and I had a conversation. I just found out some of the tools, some of the things he's using, some of the way he's doing it. And Nick Perry, another guy that
another monster has been on the
just
show.
A monster.
Yep.
What's up, Nick? He's also doing the virtual model. Mm-hmm. I think now Corey Gary, which worked with Sean, is probably doing it as well. Another monster. But really, we just wanted to see, what would it look like to do the virtual model outside of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And the other side of it was, in Oklahoma, our spreads have gone up, 9,000, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000. We're over 12,000 now on our average deal size. And talking about the wire from the title company. And I started seeing some of these spreads that were in North Carolina, South Carolina, Washington,
Oh,
Maryland,
for sure, Washington.
Maryland, Utah, Las Vegas, Arizona. And, it's 12,000 times 4, 5, 6, sometimes even more than that.
Yeah.
That was intriguing to me. Sean's like, man, we're going to close on this deal, make 100. And I was like, I've never, and I've been doing it for a while now. I've never made over, $100 and something thousand on one wholesale deal. I was like, man, I got to just figure this out. It can't be that hard. And so we went November. I bring on another 2 acquisition people, a full-time salesperson, a lead manager, which has been instrumental, and we've done pretty well so far. And I'm continuing to learn. And I really like the model because you can be anywhere, literally, to do it. You need to have a good team. That's very important, but you can be anywhere. And so
going nationwide, it's got to be heavy PPC.
Almost all PPC. Now, what we do is we do PPC, and then we drop a little bit of mail in some hot spots. Yeah.
Okay. So like 99% PPC.
Yes.
1% direct mail. Lead comes in.
Probably 95 and 5% mail. Yeah.
All right. So lead comes in.
Yep.
Generally calling or web form.
Yes.
But which one is it more?
Usually
or is it about 50-50?
Probably more web form than it is call. Yeah.
So web form comes in.
Yeah.
Goes to VA.
Goes to the lead manager.
Goes to lead manager.
I'm telling you, the lead manager part is so important.
Okay.
The reason is not only because they're the first person that the person talks to, but like as opposed to just going to like Pat Live or another
the worst thing you can possibly do with a lead.
Well, it isn't actually. You can still do deals that way. You're just losing a lot of opportunity,
right?
And you're also wasting your team's time.
You're getting slippage.
Yeah. So now what we do is we have a process. When it comes in, it has to pass these filters in order to green light to be assigned to an acquisition manager.
Got it.
And that has saved so much time, because before we would just have it go to a lead that came in. They'd have to get on the lead, build the rapport and this and that. And you don't even know if that lead is really worthy of spending the time to get
Every
on
top salespeople. Gotcha. So lead manager, a very good in-house acquisition.
Yeah.
Virtually, obviously, or at least they're in OKC. So lock them up. How's the disposition?
It's pretty cool. We have been 2 ways. Okay, 2 ways. One is going to realtor.com, finding the best agents and saying, listen, I got a house. You got any buyers? No, I don't. Oh, well, Susie, which is the one that's right below her on realtor.com, and I guarantee they know each other. I think she might have one. Susie? Sorry.
You're a bastard.
So, well, let me see. I'll get back with you. So that's one way. The other way is using a company called Brokerless, and they're a nationwide flat fee MLS service. And there's other ones, flat MLS and things. Charge $200, and you can actually get the property on MLS. Now, here's what's interesting. There's some states. I know people listening to this right now, especially agents or brokerages. You cannot list a property that you don't own on MLS. Some states actually say as long as it's in your agreement, then you're okay to do it. Other states say you need to have the listing signed by the homeowner. Right?
Yeah, Oklahoma and Texas.
But the interesting thing is if you're able to, and this isn't just, I'm not an attorney, but I've talked to several attorneys, and I don't like the word no. One attorney said you can't do it. One attorney actually said it's illegal, and I said, show me case law. He couldn't do it. The other one said, well, it's frowned upon. I was like, I'm perfect with frowned upon. I'm fine with frowned upon.
You're not a rule follower, yeah.
Can we do it? Yeah, entrepreneurs, they're not rule followers typically. So we found out a way to do it. And then we've had some success doing that. Because obviously the market right now is super hot.
Yeah.
And there's a shortage of inventory. If you are good at marketing, I mean, if you spend the time to learn marketing, you will always, I feel like you will always be successful.
Yeah.
There's people that cannot stand to market. And then
Really?
there's people that love, yeah, I know, right? I love to market, right?
Marketing is the fun part.
It is, but there's some people that can't stand to do it.
Really? All
Yeah.
right.
But they, guess what? They want to work with you because you can't. So in fact, for the last, and we've had probably almost a 4-year go. Another company in Oklahoma City, good friends, known a long time. They had a cool company. They were doing pretty well on the operation side, but they just really didn't have much of the budget to market and didn't really know how to market well. We ended up working together, JVing together, said, I'll spend all the money in the marketing. You run the operations. We'll split the deal. For the last almost 4 years, that's what we've been doing, and so we've had a lot of success with that. And also, that's actually another reason for the virtual model for the national wholesaling, because their kind of partnership broke up in June of 2020. So remember that money has been coming in. Now I hadn't to spend the money, but the money's been coming in without having to really go out there and do the operation side.
Yeah.
And it helped both of us. But now that they split up, now that's going away. That's a good percentage of money. So that was another thing I needed to do to fill that gap.
So how many are you doing monthly nationally, and then what does that equate to as far as revenue?
Yeah, so we have one vision for the team is $100,000 net weeks nationally. That's the vision. We are not there. We're right now. We're on national right now. We're probably maybe $100,000 a month right now.
Got it.
But we're learning things and we're getting better.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting, that's now, right? That was actually pretty good for Oklahoma, right? But I see the national thing going so much faster.
Right. Well, I mean, you see Nick raising $300K a month.
Yeah, and I don't actually see it. It's not that hard. I mean, once you put the things in place, it's not hard to get there. I mean, it's a math game.
Right.
You spend more money in marketing, you're going to get more deals.
Well, that's what's great about marketing. It's direct response marketing.
As long as you know how to market and you don't waste money.
Yeah.
Because you can waste a lot on the other thing too on PPC. I know a little bit. Sean knows a whole lot more, but we also have a good PPC team that you have to be on it daily.
Yeah.
I just told Nick. I said, Nick, I figured out something. Nick Perry. I want you to see something, and I hope you don't get upset about it. He was like, what? I was like, I think I spent like $12,000 on India. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, my guys take care of that. I was like, okay, but if they didn't, here's a screen. Here's what I did. Here's what I was shown. I actually got a Google rep to show me this. So I wasn't that smart. The Google rep said, do you realize you're spending money in South Africa and India? And I was like, no, I didn't. But it wasn't just on excluding. It wasn't that, which everybody thinks, I'll just exclude it. No, there's that other part of it that's called a matched distance thing or something along those lines. And anyway, you have to go get that off there. Yeah, well, so anybody does PPC right now, you might be spending tens of $1,000s on India and South Africa and other countries, and it's just waste.
I don't know if there's the same thing, but there's excluding, right? And it's also including. And including is people that you think might be looking in your market. And that's what I'm guessing is what you're talking about. People that are looking in your market when who the hell knows how Google's figured out what they might be looking in your market. Yeah.
This Google rep, which obviously is very smart with Google, they pointed it out and I was sick in my stomach.
Well, at least they told you now versus a year from now.
Absolutely.
So what do you target? If you're doing nationwide, what is it that you're targeting on pay-per-click?
We work with a nationwide title company, which in Oklahoma we work with Lincoln Title. They're amazing. But nationwide is a different story. So we work with a company called Clothesline Title, and they close in like 35, 37 states. I think they're kind of adding some. And they don't do it in Texas. They don't do it in California. Fidelity's in California. But so we're kind of targeting those states that they want to close in. Yeah. We're excluding right now Illinois, even though we get some leads still in from Illinois, North Dakota, South Dakota, West Virginia, just because of certain It's harder to.
My question is
find
like, because
buyers.
you know, with Chris Chico, right?
Yep.
He talks about on Facebook, you just target real estate.
Whole state. Yeah.
You just forget city, forget distance, forget age, like just a state. Just target the state.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys are doing?
No.
Okay, so what is your strategy on?
We find
PPC?
hot markets and we go through and look at cash transactions and look at heat maps that are in those particular areas and put a bigger emphasis on those.
Gotcha.
And then whenever we get like Midland, Texas, for example, or McKinney, Texas, or one we just closed in Gaston, Alabama. Where is Gaston, Alabama?
No idea.
But pretty hot market for cash buyers are coming in, and you wouldn't know that unless you work with an agent that says, send me a list that all your cash transactions. So you've got to have a strategy on where you're targeting that is going to give you a better bang for your buck. And then once you identify where that is, that's when you can also go kind of not all in, but go deeper with dropping some.
Put more chips in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because I love seeing your random posts of like, who has a buyer in some city, Hawaii?
Yes.
Who's got a buyer in
Hawaii's
some
hot.
city, North Carolina?
We got a deal in Juneau, Alaska. You wouldn't believe it. There's a hot market in Juneau.
No, I believe it. I just love seeing your posts. Just a random post from Cory Boatright. Who has a buyer in some city that I've never heard of?
It's funny. I'll also post on there if you're buying in just a state. If you're buying anywhere in North Carolina right now, send me a DM on the county that you focus in, and I may be able to give you a lead.
Yeah.
So what happens from that is you get these top buyers, these cash buyers. They're sending these things in. Now, here's what's interesting. I'm not typically selling to those cash buyers, right? Because I'm first seeing if I can get a retail buyer,
Right.
which is off the MLS or Realtor.com. But you always want to have that person that will buy it real quick. So I like to have kind of both sides.
Right.
And right now, quite frankly, you can just sell houses at the top of the market. Anything that comes in right now through Colorado, it's just you'll get 50 offers in one day and $30,000 or $40,000 over asking price.
Jason Rother was just, I was talking to him yesterday. He's in Austin, Texas.
Oh
Talking about all the California buyers coming to Austin. He's
Hot
like,
market.
100,000 over Zillow. Like, if it's
Ridiculous.
the way he's comping properties right now, or not comping, pricing the solid properties,
Right.
100,000 over Zillow.
How do you compete? And he also said there's a disclaimer for no appraisal contingency.
Oh, waive all appraisal. Well, it's
Waive it all.
California. They're just used to
a
it.
waiver, yeah.
But they're used to that in California.
Okay.
But speaking of seeing your posts, one of the things that I always enjoy is just your random posts that have to do with just about anything.
Yeah.
Not even real estate.
Bitcoin,
Just like,
whatever.
check this out.
Yeah.
So you're obviously very fascinated with kind of like, I don't know, leading edge. I mean, not sure if leading edge is the right word, but you're always
Relevance.
looking down the road.
Relevance,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So talk about that.
And future pacing and yeah, I think that's important to be able to be relevant and I like to be a little bit of a futurist. I like to see kind of where things are going. What do they say? Wayne Gretzky, skate where the puck's going, not where it is, right?
Right.
And also just to build that level of not just relevance with your audience, but just in general of being able to not post everything always real estate has an element that you're not just you're not just like people tend to elevate like you may not know it or not, but people elevate you. They put you on a pedestal. They put you because you have a thought platform.
Got it.
So if all you start doing is talking about your coaching, your salespeople, and all you're doing is that, right? Then they think, oh my God, if I don't talk about coaching or my salespeople, or if I don't have anything to contribute, they don't look at you like you're just a regular person.
Right.
But when you post pictures with your family and your kids and your those things and make people laugh, and you post those those not sayings, and it makes people go, oh, Steve's a real person,
right? And
I can relate. So I guess the word would be, I'm looking at being relatable.
Yeah. Well, I love reading it because then I don't have to do the research. Like Cory is like my go-to guy for like, here's what's coming down the pike. So here's what's coming down the road. But I think also it kind of relates to, because I was having a little fun at your expense over the weekend, where I was looking at your phone, I was like, holy crap. Right? And I took a picture of it and I posted it on Facebook, and there was so much anxiety from so many.
Where's the camera?
Just right there.
It's all organized.
Right. And that was a joke. I was like, it's just like when your mom cleaned your room when you were younger. Like, Mom, where'd you put it? Like, I had a place for it. Like, no, your room was messed. Like, I know, but there was a place for it. It was organized.
So about half of the apps on my phone were from a mobile app business as a part of game apps, and I was helping consult marketing for them, and I had to download a lot of apps. And so I got half of them on there. But then, I just ended up having folders and just so it doesn't bother me that much. It's weird when people see it. I'm just so blind to it. They're like, that post did get a lot of comments. There were a
lot of people that needed some anxiety. We touched on it a moment ago, but we didn't really get too in depth into it. You mentioned syndication.
Yeah.
For those of the people that are listening, because we have a broad range of listeners.
Okay.
What is syndication?
So syndication is pretty cool. It's basically where you will, find some kind of asset that you're trying to raise money on. And instead of, let's just use $5 million. So you're going to buy this $5 million apartment complex. Mm-hmm. And this was an aha moment for me too, learning about apartments. You're like, well, where am I going to come up with $5 million? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have it. What's cool is that a bank will loan usually about 70 to 80% on that if it's a good asset. So think about that. Like, you can buy a $5 million apartment complex. Now, again, some of you listening, you're like, this might be basic, Cory, but this was an aha moment for me. You can buy a $5 million apartment complex, and the bank is going to bring you $3.5 to $4 million. So all you have to do is raise 1.5 or $1 million.
Right.
I don't have that either. Oh, okay. Well, what do? You can syndicate. Mm-hmm. You can create basically that 1.5, or let's just use that 1 million if the bank's going to bring 80%. No, let's use 1.5. The bank's going to bring 70%, and there's 1.5 you're raising. You can look at that 1.5 and divide it up as your 100%. Mm-hmm. And you can say, I'm going to split 70% and then 30%. 70% can be for LP, limited partners, and 30% can be for your GP, general partners. Where general partners get equity, LP usually just gets, pref and return, IRR. So a syndication, basically, if you do a 506C has accredited investors only, and a 506B can be non-accredited investors up to a certain amount. You can have a certain amount of accredited investor, but you can also have unaccredited investor, which is kind of like your mom and pop.
Right.
Now, again, I'm not an attorney, so but you cannot really generally purpose advertise for 506B versus you can, my understanding, on 506C until they make some of these changes. So point of syndication is you can raise that other 1.5 million by bringing other investors in and giving them a piece of it based on a pref and also getting a return on their money. So they might put in 50 grand, 100 grand. Well, now guess what? Now all you need is 15 people giving you now all you need is 15 people giving you $100,000.
Right.
Well, you don't even need that because you've probably got another 30% over here. So now you only need like maybe 10 people giving you $100,000. And that's called syndication. So you're going to buy it with your investors, and then you're going to grow it usually, over a 3 to 5 year period of hold. And if you're buying it where it's non-performing, there's more risk, but there's usually greater upside.
Right.
If you're buying it performing, which is what I've done on my two, it's not going to be as much upside, but it's going to be better. It's going to be a little bit more. It's going to be less risky because you already got money that's taking care of the debt.
Right.
The debt service.
You're already getting a service, right?
But it's pretty exciting because you can buy something at a higher cap, sell it at a lower cap, and make millions of dollars. And the cool thing is you can also do a cost seg, which I've done, and you could actually make a lot of money but have a negative K1. you know, which is really cool.
Right. I was talking to Mike Moulton about that.
Mike's a great guy.
Yeah, because I was complaining to him about my tax situation. I was like, oh, you should just go put 100,000 into syndication. I was like, oh, that's all I have to do?
Marcus Krigler does our apartments.
Yeah.
And he's amazing. He's one of the best there is when it comes to knowing exactly what you need to do with your money.
Yeah.
Especially with apartments. Not just apartments, but single family too, but just
when I was
investing.
talking to him, it's like, you need to get into mobile home developments.
There you go.
Like,
I mean, he just has these different insights
like
because he
can
can see the bigger picture of all these different investors.
He was telling me you can do 80% of the acquisition on mobile home person. Oh, man. So I got, just hypothetically, right? We're in this podcast studio in this building I'm leasing.
Yeah.
And it's for sale right now for like 5.8.
Okay.
So all I need to do is go raise 30% of that. That's like, almost $2 million.
Yeah.
And then the bank will finance the rest.
Yep.
That's a syndication.
Yeah. And what's cool about that, man, is that you might have a higher loan for just like a couple of years, but this is going to be performing. So you'll actually you can get better lending, better opportunity on lending, lower rates sooner than someone that has a non-performing that's having to pay, 8%, 7% for 2 years, and then they change around and refinance it.
Right.
Pull money out tax free. You say again, pull money out tax free. Refinance proceeds are not income.
It's not taxable income.
Not taxable income.
It feels almost like free money.
It feels like free money, and we all have a business partner, a silent business partner, and that is Uncle Sam. If you look at all your expenses, even higher than pay-per-click, it's Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
You got to figure out a way to utilize the opportunity for tax code. And I'm not an expert at it, but I know people that are experts, and they can help you essentially be smarter and not have to pay as much money on taxes.
It's not massaging. It's not cheating. It's taking advantage of the tax code written by wealthier people than us to benefit them. And we're just using those same exact laws.
Go on the IRS website, and it actually encourages you to start an LLC to pay less taxes.
Does it?
It does.
Yeah.
Crazy. But just most people don't realize just starting a single member LLC, and it's just by that itself, it doesn't take much for you to do it. Maybe $500, $1,000 some places, but usually less than $1,000. Just doing that alone can change the game for you.
Yeah.
Expenses can be written off. You pay less money, and it's just game changer.
So going nationwide, what is your monthly marketing overhead?
Nationwide right now, we're at, with all fixed expenses and everything, around $40,000 a month.
It's hefty.
Yeah.
And then what is your total monthly expenses between everything?
Everything. We're at 600 and I think it's about 620 or yearly. Oh, sorry. So that's probably 50
monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little rough, but you're closing deals.
Closing deals.
Yeah. So for you and your business, is there anything like, if this went away, you'd be freaking out, whether it's a tool, CRM, something, a system, process? I mean, we're hearing texting is kind of going some interesting direction.
Yeah.
What is something for you, like, man, like, I can't live without this?
Pay-per-click. So right now, like, if you don't, I mean, because direct mail has been harder and harder. Now we were doing 50,000 pieces of mail for months and months. I mean, for years. I'm sorry, years and years, and just in Oklahoma City. And whenever that started drying up, especially during COVID, I mean, you have to find a source that will give you can turn the faucet on, turn it off. People don't realize that Google is smarter than you.
Yeah.
Facebook is smarter than you. You can go down to the county and get, try to get these tax liens and you can get your list there. That's fine. You can go on list source. You can do cool creative things there. You can go on PropStream and get lists there. You can listability, Atom data. I mean, the list goes on. You can get all these different lists, but none of it is going to be as good as pay-per-click.
Yeah.
Not in terms of how targeted that they can bring somebody.
Well, you got someone that says, I want to sell my house now.
Right now.
Right. You got someone super motivated.
Yeah.
So I guess a follow-up question then for you in those other markets is, do you have people like? Are you in less competitive markets? Because like Phoenix,
Yeah.
there's a few people that are on Google right now.
A lot. Yeah, a lot. So
you're not in Phoenix?
No. Yeah. So kind of tertiary markets.
Tertiary markets, yeah.
I say it right. Is tends to be a little bit better opportunity.
Got it.
Yeah.
What keeps you going right now? What is your why?
What is my why? My why is, what do I wake up every day and I'm excited about the next day? Mm-hmm. And my why has to do with, man, it's going to sound weird, but there's some, you know what? It was in that presentation that we saw. Some people want to get as big and freaking just swing for the fences and knock home runs, you know, and they want to do that in their business. They want to grow a huge business, right? But I don't think you have to.
No, you don't.
Because I knew a guy that was running a $10 million a year business, and he was netting $500,000 a year. And he was running $10 million on this mini blind business. And I was thinking, like, couldn't you run a $3 million business and make $500,000?
Absolutely could.
Could I run a $2 million business and make $500,000? I think sometimes we get so excited about building the skyscraper, you know, because in grandeur, when we were building, remember Lincoln Logs? Do you remember Lincoln Logs?
Yeah, in kindergarten.
Remember building? You go up and you try to get. I think we get excited about building something so big, but we forget about why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And so my why has to do with at the end of 2012, I was in 2012, a buddy of mine, John Cochran, and I, we went through some incredibly heavy things in my life. I don't think I've told you the story, man. You know, I grew up in Oklahoma, and it's the Bible Belt, and I've been a Christian for a big part of my life, and been a big part of my life. But I was whenever I was selling those courses and short sale courses, and I was building this business. I even talk about the software company we had. We had a pretty good sized software company too for short sales, and I was on the road just, you know, going through stages and selling. I was good at selling, loved selling, but I neglected my wife, and that ended up costing my marriage. And I was going through I went through a pretty heavy time. I had quite a few rentals at that point. In fact, I didn't have a quota retirement, so my retirement was what I call wallet houses, and so I had some houses that were paid free and clear. Well, when I ended up getting divorced, I got all my assets cut in half, and it nearly killed me. I mean, it nearly took me out. Not like suicidal, but like my attorney said, man, you should just declare bankruptcy and just start over. I didn't, but so I just thought that, you know, as long as I go make money, I'll take care, because I don't have the college education to fall back on, and so I just got to go make it happen. Mm-hmm. During that time, I was also at my church helping lead praise and worship, and our pastor married my wife and I. He was caught in a scandal between him and another guy swapping their partners. And I was at this church for several years, and this was happening when I found out that he was also counseling us when we were going through our divorce. So you have to understand, like, there's things happening in my company. I'm getting a divorce, and on top of that, my business partner. This is like this is not even the cherry on top. My business partner, which I should have done a better job. I should have been a better about due diligence on a business partner, but he was very good on having the operation stuff lined up, and I was very good on the marketing. I knew I could bring customers. He could run it in the back end. And he's done this stuff for a while, and so I thought he's going to be a good partner. But anyway, my business partner and I were splitting up on this short sale business. So I'm losing my business. I'm losing my marriage. And on top of that, I'm getting counseling, and my pastor, who I have, my spiritual relevance, my foundation, if you will.
You revere him.
I revere, and my relationship with the Lord. I was like, Christianity's a joke. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever said that publicly, ever. But I'm telling you, in my heart, I felt like Christianity was a joke. On top of that, a buddy of mine decided in 2012 we're going to go, and he had a relationship breakup. So I had a relationship breakup. I said, man, I just need to decompress. I need to get away. We're going to go to Hawaii and skip winter. Skip it. We meet up in Vegas. We go to dinner. He looks over at my throat and says, bro, what's that lump on your throat? I was like, what lump? He's like, you got a lump on your throat. So I went to the bathroom, looked at it. Kind of saw a lump, but I didn't think anything of it. Flew to Vegas. Of course, when I land, now I'm freaking out about it. So I go to emergency care. They give me some kind of something, said take it for 10 days. See, doesn't go away. Then I go do what's called a fine needle aspiration, FNA. And then you wait. 2 days go by, I get a call from the doctor. And I can still remember, Steve, just like you are sitting there, and that's John, and I'm sitting here across the table. And that doctor gets on the phone. He says, hey, can I speak with Cory Boatright? And I said, yeah, it's me. He said, well, I got some news for you. And I crap you not, man. I said, well, I hope I don't have cancer. And he goes, I'm sorry to say you do. You have thyroid carcinoma cancer. And is it stage 2? And it's very serious. And I'm sorry, whatever plans you have, but they need to be canceled. And I encourage you to go get your things in order to get this taken care of.
Things in order as in like documents.
Documents, whatever it is. He gave me a first class. Whenever that happens, you get a free first class. If you don't know, you get a first class ticket back home. And so think about this. We're skipping where? So we booked things in Maui.
Yeah.
All canceled. So I feel like I let my friend down. I've lost tons of money because you can't get it back. On top of this, I'm gonna have to talk my mom off the freaking ledge, whichever she hears about this. So I end up going and getting surgery, and I had a thyroidectomy. It was the end of 2012, and it was like one of the best surgeries that the surgeon said he'd ever had. And but during that process, I had to reevaluate some things. And I had this moment of regret. I'm going to share this real quick because this is the thing that changed everything on what my why is. And I'm going to go back to that. And it's a long answer, so just work with me. I had a vision or a dream that my brothers called me in the middle of the night, and they said, "Hey," my oldest brother Dusty said, "Hey man, don't want to alert you or anything, but Mom died." All right, so up to that point, I've been traveling, doing all these things. My mom literally lives, and I moved her from my hometown, Weatherford, to Oklahoma City. My mom literally lives maybe 10 miles away from me, less than that. And sometimes there'd be months. I'm not proud of this, man, but there'd be months that I did not go by to spend time with my mom. And my excuse was, I'm too busy. Mm-hmm. Too busy. Go back to that vision. My brother says, Mom died. I sit up in bed in my vision. I start shaking uncontrollably. I literally dropped the phone. And all I could think about was regret. That's it. That's all I could think about was, I'm not going to have the opportunities to ask her the things, to talk to her things about my dad. My dad passed when I was very young, so I had a lot of conversation. I want to ask her about him, and she was a Mary Kay woman, and you know, and just all these amazing things she did. And I thought later I'm going to talk about those things. We'll have time. Right. I'm just going to do my thing now. And she's the woman where it's like, oh, I know you're busy, no problem. No, you know, she doesn't even. She loves you. But now I don't have that opportunity, bro. And so, and it's gone, and I have regret. So I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, that was a dream. But it freaked me out so much that I called my mom. And it was like 2:30 in the morning. And she picks up the phone and she's like, hello. And I said, hey, sir, why are you calling me so late? I said, I need you to just be quiet for a second because I got something on my heart I need to tell you. She said, are you okay? I said, I'm fine. Just need you to, don't say anything for a little bit. I need you to get this off my chest. She goes, you sure you're okay? I said, I'm fine. And I said, first off, I apologize for being a bad son. I've been working. I've been doing my thing. I thought it was the right thing to do. But I haven't spent time with you, and I love you. I care about you. But I just have a crappy way of showing it. Like you wouldn't be able to tell in my actions. She was, I love you. You don't have to. I'm fine. You're fine. I said, just don't say anything. I said, the great news is it's never going to happen again. From now on, every Sunday that I'm in town, you and I are going to go have breakfast. We're going to go to church. We're going to just drink some coffee for a few hours, and you don't have a say in it. She's like, are you sure you're okay? I said, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Bro. So surgery happens. And mom and I start spending every Sunday together. And in the beginning, it was tough because my mom would save up a whole week worth of stuff and then just like vomit it out for the whole couple hours. So it was rough.
Yeah.
And then God just kind of spoke to me. He was like, this isn't about you. It's about her. Mm-hmm. So just like she repeats something or whatever, just be cool with it. Just enjoy the moment, man. Because I had a lot of regret, bro. And I'll tell you, if I get the call right now and my mom passes away, my heart would be hurt. But I have zero regret.
Yeah.
And there's no price you can put on that. Zero price. Yeah, so my why has to do with being grateful every day. As I was going through my, when I got through my surgery, I started just to write down a reason every day to be grateful. I started posting day 1. You know, I'm grateful for my hands. Day 2, grateful for my feet. Day 3, I'm grateful for my hair. Grateful for my fingers. Just a reason to be grateful every day, to have consistency, because I was getting depressed. Because here I am speaking, making money for a living, selling things, and I can't even talk for like 6 months.
Some irony there.
You know, and it was crazy. On top of that, short sales were changing.
Oh, yeah.
And now a lot of the deals that we had in the hopper, because of how the things were changing, were requiring these seasoning. You couldn't market it before, all these different things. So I was losing deals. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I just shut down the loss mitigation? Why don't I just stop doing the short sales right now and just focus on wholesales? Because that was like the low-hanging fruit. And I didn't really have to go out there and speak about it or anything, and you could do okay. So that's what I started doing. I started focusing on just doing wholesaling. And up until when we started doing the syndication for the apartments, that's kind of the road that we've been, a boring kind of wholesaling business up to that point.
I don't know about boring. So that's your why.
My why is being grateful every day, bro. And that's the reason why. I want you to know that's the reason why, because I don't want to have any regrets.
And I see it though, like in the posts, right? Like the gratitude day, whatever. There's a number behind each one.
Yeah.
And now I know why. So then on the flip side of that is, what is your biggest struggle right now?
My biggest struggle is, sometimes it's easy to see all these, especially being part of Collective Genius, you see all these amazing, huge businesses, and they're growing and being, and you find yourself comparing yourself to, like, if I'm not Eric Brewer, I'm freaking nobody. If I'm not
Steve room full of alpha males.
I'm not Steve Trang. I'm freaking nobody.
Well, the good news is I'm looking at Frank Cava. We had breakfast this morning. I was like, Frank's kicking my butt. Like, I'm not Frank Cava.
I'm not Frank Cava. I'm nobody,
yeah.
right? But I think that has to do with basically saying, like, you're comparing yourself to where they want to go, but what is it that you want to go? I don't want to be McDonald's. I don't have any desire to have $100 million business. Zero desire. Some people do, but it's not in me.
Yeah.
I think Jason Medley talked about this too. Where it's like, if you make more than like $240,000, you can actually spend a year. Like, you can pretty much do a lot of things you want, unless you're gonna go buy a yacht or some jet or something, which I don't care about.
That was a conversation that was had on Sunday. Someone was talking about buying a jet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's cool, but like, I was at a place when I was doing that short sale business. We had a lot of money coming in, big overhead, and you could do a lot of cool things. And I did a lot of cool things, but it's like, maybe because I did some of those cool things early on, like, I don't desire necessarily to do them so much now. And I really just, I guess my struggle is, I just don't want to. I want to find myself comparing myself. Just because someone else is building this big business doesn't mean I need to.
All right, and that's clarity, right? And that's a challenge for all of us, especially being alpha males. What is your superpower?
My superpower, I think someone that knows me would say my superpower is connecting and probably encouraging. Words of affirmation. Words mean a lot to me. I believe words have power, and there's a word called efficacy, which is powerful, because it basically means that you see something in someone else that they don't see in themselves. And I think by consulting and working with people, that I've been able to see some of that, and it's powerful to see, encourage them to move towards that.
Well, not just see it, then probably extracting it as well, getting them to maximize it.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and I mean, Leon had some very kind words, right? It's like, when Cory's here, like, you'll get additional help that you didn't even know was coming. Last question.
Yeah.
What book have you gifted more than any other?
What book have I gifted more than any other? I'd probably say How to Win Friends and Influence People.
So that lines up a lot with your style.
I mean, the book is revolutionary. Yeah. I mean, it's just an unreal book. Mirror matching. It's just an incredible book. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, guys, if you get value today, please like, subscribe, share, comment. I asked this because that's what YouTube and all these other algorithms want to see. Google wants to see. So if you guys enjoy it, please help me get the message out. We're trying to create 100 millionaires. Last thoughts you want to leave the listeners with?
Remember, I wear this bracelet, which is grateful. And I started this thing on actually, it's funny, when I started posting the reason to be grateful every day, this guy that had a pretty big following, he saw it and started posting in his group. And we grew to like over 4,000 members in a night. It was crazy. It was called the Grateful Project. But last thought is, remember this: your worst day is someone else's paradise.
Yeah.
When I'm in the shower, not to picture that, but when I'm in the shower, now you just did. I shouldn't even said it. But when I'm in the shower, and that water's running over you, and if you say it over and over and over and over and over again, your worst day is someone else's paradise. My worst day is someone else's paradise. My worst. Throughout the day, all the things that come up, although they are challenges, you'll just be so grateful that you have those challenges.
Well, it's nothing compared to other people on the other side of the planet.
We have I build clean water wells with charity water, and we have no idea what it's like if you were a parent, to have their kid, where people defecate in these little rivers and things, and your kid is thirsty, and you got to find a way to get water to your kid, and the only alternative that you have is defecated water. Or you have to put a thing on your head and bring, food 2 miles because you don't have a way to bring food, nourishment.
Yeah, and we're upset when the DoorDash is a little.
We're freaking upset.
It's a little less than warm.
Yeah, our pizza's cold.
Yeah, pizza's cold.
So your worst day is someone else's paradise. Remember, gratitude. I really think that empathy and gratitude is the currency for the next generation. It's got to be, man.
Yeah, it's powerful. What if someone wanted to get a hold of you? How would they do that?
Yeah, so they can go, type in Cory Boatright, Boatright, no W. For some reason, someone said there's a Boatright that has a W.
There's no W in it.
No W.
Yeah.
And Cory, Cory. No. Yeah, sorry about that, Steve. If you're wanting to learn about coaching, wholesaling particularly, you can go to Cory's Coaching, Corys, coaching.com. And it just has a little quick video. Just ask a couple of questions if you're starting or whatever. Just ask a couple of questions, see if we're a good fit. And then on Insta, we have reiprofits.com, which I'm excited about, really building this social media and TikTok and all the other Kong and Pinedas and all this other stuff to see what's happening with that. I do think social media is going to be very, very powerful for the future, and I don't want to be necessarily left behind on it. And I enjoy it too.
Don't get left behind. And if you guys want to learn about crypto, you gotta be friends. You gotta be friends with Cory.
That's another podcast.
You gotta be friends with Cory because you're gonna learn everything you need to know about crypto on Cory's Facebook post. Thank you. This is a pleasure.
It. It's awesome, man.
Thank you guys for watching.